It's only Bigg Vic. We back in the building with another video. And today I have another special guest. You guys might recognize this face. I have Mike from Dispatch Experts. How's it going over there, Mike?
Hey Vic, thank you so much for having me again. It's a pleasure to be on your show one more time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So listen, something that's happening right now in the industry, we have a lot of new MC authorities coming into the business, and from a lot of the comments that I typically get on videos, a lot of these guys are having a tough time, right? So some are trying to stay local, some are doing OTR. As a matter of fact, I just got an email from a guy that's, he's having a bit of a time out there, just calling brokers and trying to book freight with a new authority. Some of these brokers will give you a shot, but a majority of them are looking for 180 days, 90 days, a year. Typically the bigger the broker, the better the broker, the more time they're putting on, new authorities. What have you guys been experiencing over there with Dispatch Experts?
You're absolutely right. The main thing that we face over here too, and we're the front lines for new MCs. We have a lot of new MCs that we're working with, and that's the first and main thing is the brokers unwilling to work with new MCs, where you can have 25 posted loads when you're searching for something, and none of the posted loads or the brokers that have posted these loads are willing to work with new MCs. And that's the first and probably the biggest barriers carriers face, especially during that first 90 days. Because you set the milestones yourself, there's 90 days, there's 6 months, there's a year, but that first 90 days is the toughest when it comes to new MCs.
What would be some solutions, or what have you guys done that's helping new authorities, or how are you guys looking at them when they come into the space? Like, how do you guys handle that?
Truth is, there isn't just a one-shot solution to this, right? It's still going to be tough. What we've been doing for new MCs is a series of steps that we've been taking to increase their chances of surviving the first 90 days or having minimal losses during those first 90 days. And I'm sure we'll go into details, but just to give you an overview, it starts from doing a market research during the time when you submitted your insurance to the FMCSA and you're waiting for your MC to get active. This is golden time to research the market. To see the posting brokers, the posting rates, the deadheads that you're going to have to face. What are brokers paying with different driving preferences, whether it is local, over the road, or regional? And that's the main step. And getting introduced to the brokers that are posting in your area, the destinations that it pays to go to, and destinations where it pays to come back from.
Okay.
Recognizing the dead zones. And after that, what we do is we actually isolate the brokers that work with new MCs. First of all, we have a list of brokers that we know for a fact work with new MCs. We update it every month because it does change. And we also coincided with the existing brokers in the area that we're looking at to make sure that that first day the MC is active, we set up with those brokers right away that are willing to work with new MCs.
Okay. What's up, fam? Dispatch Experts just released their new carrier boost pack. You can now tap in with them and figure exactly what your full cost calculation is, what your minimum rate per mile to run a load is, your break-even number, a full breakdown of your fixed and variable expenses. Plus, you can get set up with 20 brokers that will work with new MCs once you are active. I don't know how long they will keep this open, but I do know the slots will be limited for this service. So if you're struggling to book loads because your authority is too new, give them a shout. Everyone will not be accepted. Be sure to hit that link below so that they'll know I sent you over there. Let's eat. So if I'm a new guy, just got my authority, and I'm looking at going OTR. If I was new, I definitely personally would be looking at going OTR because I understand my chances are probably going to increase versus me trying to stay, local, especially with the new authority. So if I'm new and I'm looking at this, I basically could sign up, basically get set up with Dispatch Experts, and you guys can get me some freight booked with a brand new authority. Doesn't matter if I'm 30 days, if I'm 2 weeks old, I can start making money basically.
You can.
Okay.
And and you're still going to face the same issue. There's still, even as dispatchers, we don't have a magic wand, right? We still face the same issues where you find yourself in a position where the brokers that are present in the area aren't willing to work with new MCs. But how you put yourself ahead is when there is those two brokers that are willing to work with new MCs, you're already set up with them, because every other new MC is competing with you to get on those loads. And if you're going to spend, at best case, 30 minutes on setup, you're losing out on this load.
For sure.
So getting set up with as many brokers as possible that you know for a fact work with new MCs. And moreover, so as you do your research, you see the brokers that have presence, the brokers that post in the lanes that you're looking at, and you also inquire about when do they start working with new MCs. You can also talk to them and be like, hey, can I get set up with you now? I understand you're not going to give me loads until I'm 3 months old, until I'm 6 months old, but let me get set up so that whenever that time comes, that will already be behind me.
So I know you guys see a lot of rates. You're working with a lot of different carriers. And you're dispatching a lot of companies right now. On average, have you guys started seeing any the rates go up, or is it still dependent on the lane that that the carrier is moving in?
It's very dependent on the lane. It's
Okay.
very dependent on the lane. And I kind of want to go back to what you said when new MC comes in, and for you, over the road is the way. But when we do this research for carriers, we often tell them that, you know what, you don't need to drive more than 1,000 miles.
Right.
For example, right now, and I'm sure you know this too, the market is very good in Midwest. If a carrier is based out of Maryland or Virginia, there's no point in sending them all the way down to Florida. There's no point in sending anyone down to Florida. But if they stay within their region, if they go to Illinois, if they go to Missouri, if they go to Ohio, stay in Pennsylvania, they don't necessarily need to do those 1,000-mile runs.
Right, for sure. You guys over at Dispatch Experts are basically able to take a new carrier and kind of, I guess, set up a plan. Basically see what that new carrier is looking to do when they first come into this business. Now, I'm sure there are carriers that come in and you basically can't, the scope of what they're looking to do probably doesn't match up with what you guys could do for them. Or I guess it just has to make sense on both ends before you even take on a new carrier, correct?
Of course. And part of the service that we do for new MCs, when we do the market research for them, we also do their calculations. And by saying calculations, I mean we give them their minimum rate per mile. We give them their daily negatives. We take a lot of information from them, starting from how many days per month they're trying to work. We adjust it with HOS regulations. We include in our calculations, if they wanted to drive 600 miles a day for 21 days a month, what would their mileage be? We calculate their fuel costs. We account for 12 cents a mile for maintenance and repairs. And a lot of the times, we would tell carriers that dispatching isn't something they can afford, especially in that beginning, because the margins are very slim at times, and this is solely dependent on the driving preferences.
Okay.
And we'll look at these rates, and me and you, we've spoken about rate per mile ideology when you say, well, I got to drive over $2 a mile, over $3 a mile. And we'll do a research and we'll look at the local market, and you'll see a load that's posted 50 miles for $200. If you look at the rate per mile, that's a $4 a mile load. But if you look at it from a perspective of what you're going to make a day, and you look at it from the perspective of what your bottom line is, how much do you need to make a month just to be at zero? You realize that local, that $4 a mile, that sounds very appealing, is actually something that's going to bring the ship down.
That's why it's very important to know your numbers when you first get started in this business, before you even take your first load, to have that picture already, mapped out of exactly, okay, where am I going to make, what's going to be the best route or option for me to make my money, right? To make the most money
Exactly.
smart to
Maximize.
basically, to
Maximize.
maximize the time that you're going to be out there, if you're going to be out there. Let me ask you this question. I've seen carriers, I've done it myself. We're able to successfully put these partial loads together out here, right? I think this is a great segue to talk about, because partialing, if you know how to do it properly, it can definitely set you apart from a lot of other carriers out there that are just taking full truckloads. Now, I know not everyone can pull this off successfully, and it takes time to do it, and you have to get up mighty early to make it work. So, what is you guys? What are your take on the partial side of moving freight, especially with the box truck?
I'll say this first for a new MC, because as a new MC, in my opinion, and with the experience that we've had, starting out and banking on partials is a very risky way to start the business. And we said this at the beginning, there are very few brokers that work with new MCs. And when you're booking partials, if you can't combine these partials, you're operating at a giant loss. So imagine a scenario where we find a great partial that, as far as partial goes, it pays well, it gives us ample amount of time for delivery, but we're stuck there and we're unable to find the second part of it, the third part of it. And as a new MC, it's important for you to deliver everything on time, for you to be flawless, to start building those relationships. Now, you book that first load, and if you're unable to find something that's going in the same direction, that's going to fill up your truck, that loss that you're either way going to have is just going to increase dramatically.
Absolutely.
So
That's a fact.
yeah, it's true. It's true. And for new MCs, I would think that partials should be viewed more as bonuses if you're able to combine them, but not something that you can bank on. You can't look at the market, look at the partial loads available, and just assume you're going to be able to get on them and assume that you're going to be able to benefit from having multiple partials in your truck.
That's definitely something that you have to consider before you're doing, especially if you're new, right? So of course the full truckload is gonna put a little more meat in your pocket, just in case you can't pull off a partial load. But that is the flip side of doing moving partial freight, because if you got something on there for 50 cents a mile and you got 1,000 miles to go, and you're not able to successfully put some more freight on there, you're gonna take a loss.
Yeah,
you're definitely gonna take a loss.
It's a disaster. You
Absolutely.
start out with your hands behind your back. You start out there, and the toll it has on you, because you're driving that 1,000 miles, knowing with every mile you're spending gas, your insurance payments aren't going away, your truck payments aren't going away, and it's, again, with partials, tricky business. Amazing when you can do it, and you nailed it to the spot, and you nailed it to the spot. You got to start really early in the morning if you want those partials to work.
You do. Here's another gem I could throw out there as far as partials go as well. Something I've noticed: if you're in an area that's just paying super low freight, most of those loads that are posted are mainly going to be partial loads getting out of certain areas. So again, it still ties back into you having to get up early to be able to piece those partials together, especially if you're on the West Coast. If you're trying to get out of California, New Mexico, somewhere like that, you definitely have to get up early to play with those partials, because even some of the full truckloads that come out of that area, they're not paying full truckload money, because it's just a bad area to move freight out of, right? Listen, you can go in super successful going in, but then you're going to have to make it, connect the dots together to come back up out of there with some decent money.
Of course, and that goes back to doing your research.
Yes.
Right? How does route planning start? You say, okay, where does it pay to go? And if you're staying out there, you say, where do I want to come back from? And on that example, and in many examples, if we're taking a load that we know is paying us well, but we're going somewhere where there is terrible rates or there's very low capacity, we'll be ready to deadhead from there and we'll account that into our calculations
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that if we go there and we have to deadhead 300 miles to get another load, that initial load we took still has to make sense. It
Mm-hmm.
still has to meet the bottom line. It still has to cover the daily negative.
Yes. That's so critical. Like to know that information, to not know that information is almost detrimental to your business, right? Especially as a brand new carrier, when you're out here just trying to figure out the business, you're watching a bunch of videos, you're trying to figure out like, okay, like how do I put all these pieces together and put a plan together that actually makes sense for my business at the end of the day, right? Because you can find yourself moving freight along and the numbers are just not adding up. Then you got to pay attention to your hours of service. Like, so all of these things have to make sense. Do you have appointment times? Do you not have appointment times? Is it an open window to drop off this freight? So it goes back to planning.
Yeah. It all goes back to planning, and most importantly, and you said you watch a lot of videos, there's a lot of content out there, and what you want is a realistic picture.
Mm-hmm.
There's people with positive outlooks, there's people with negative outlooks. What you want is your research. You want the realistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If there's going to be barriers, if you and your location are going to present with more barriers than somebody else in a different locations, you want to know that before you step into that game.
Right.
And that's how you put yourself ahead, is when you know the issues that might come along before they even hit you.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be issues no matter what, and it's the trucking industry. There's going to be issues, but if you can anticipate some of them, if you can be ready for these issues coming along, that's the greatest advantage you can have. If you can put yourself ahead of other new MCs,
Mm-hmm.
by being set up, by being ready, by knowing the market around you. And this is very important. You can look at national rates and averages. Those are for flatbeds, dry vans, and reefers. If you have any other truck type, these numbers are just numbers.
Right.
And even if you find the national averages, if you're in a state like Texas, Texas averages mean nothing, because from place to place, capacity and rates vary.
For sure. If a new company, a new carrier, knows nothing about this business other than what they watched on YouTube, what would you guys recommend? What should be their move? Like if you had to lay it out from A to Z, would you recommend a new carrier to kind of put all their numbers together, get a game plan? If they got payments, if they got insurance notes, would you have them lay out everything to say, okay, for you to make this make sense, you have to do A, B, and C?
100%, you nailed it. And I'll say this again, before your MC even gets active, first thing you want to know is how much does it cost you to run your business. And that the obvious numbers are insurance, truck payments, but there's a lot of other expenses there that you're gonna have to account for, like your tolls if you're anywhere close to Northeast, your meal plans, your stays. You can even though it's a variable expense, you can account for your fuel and how much you're gonna spend money on your fuel, because you know how much you're willing to drive. You want to put 500 miles a day for 21 days. You know how many miles you're gonna drive, and you know you can get the fuel prices.
Right.
And you know how much you're going to spend on fuel. So first of all, you need to know what it takes to run your business. You want to know with those 20 days, and I'm using this as an example, what's your daily negative? How much do you need to cover? Based on those numbers, based on the mileage that you're going to drive, based on how many percent you're going to give to your factoring, based on how much you have determined you are willing to spend on dispatching, on accounting services, on software subscriptions like DAT and Truckstop. Which one of these load boards is most effective for you? Do you even need the load boards if you're going to have a dispatcher?
Right.
And all of these needs to be calculated to know that forget about the market. This is what it takes to run this business.
Right.
Once you have that, now you have your A. With this information in mind, you go on to those search boards for 7 days, for 10 days, every day, for 3 times a day. You record everything that gets posted coming out of your home base and coming back to your home base. You record the mileage, the deadheads, the posting brokers, the rates, everything. And you see what's the average mileage you would have to drive if you want to stay local. How much does it pay? Every single time you click on that search button, how many listings come up to understand capacity?
Right.
And this is something you can do. You don't need to have an active MC to do this. You know the mileages that are being driven. You know the average loads that are being posted. You know the average rates for local, for regional, for over the road. And then you go into looking at brokers, broker presence. These are people that you're going to want to build relationships with.
Right.
And again, just because these brokers right away aren't going to work with you, it doesn't mean you can't start building relationships with them.
For sure.
A lot of them will allow setups, and you will be ready whenever the time comes. Whenever you hit that 3 months, whenever you hit those 6 months, you're going to be ready. Okay, now I can work with these guys.
Okay.
And so the research is going to tell you where to go, what to look out for, what to not look out for. When you're looking at places to come back from, you're going to see where it does not pay to come back from. This is how you're going to start getting introduced to the dead zones around you.
Right.
Places where it pays 70 cents to come back from. Places where, just like you said, Vic, you might just take a partial just to get out of there, just to not deadhead.
Right.
Something small.
Some
Something
gas
to
money.
add to that bottom line.
Put some diesel in the truck.
Some
Keep
gas
some diesel.
money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now you have that. Now you have the market, and now you have your own numbers. So what you do is you put those two together, and you see which one makes more sense for you.
Right.
Should you stay regional? Should you stay over the road? Are you making money? Are you breaking profit? And keep in mind that most of these numbers you just looked at, you assumed all those brokers are going to work with you, which isn't going to be the case. So you say, okay, this is the best case scenario. So I need to prepare for the worst. So if there's 10 posting brokers and 3, and I'm just giving a brute example here, and only 3 are working with new MCs, what's going to happen if you operate at 30% of that capacity? How bad is it going to be? And be prepared for however bad it is.
Right.
You put those rates, you put those numbers. Now you know what you want to do. Now you know if you need to increase. If you thought you were going to drive 350 miles a day, you look at it and you're like, no, I got to put in the mileage to bring in the money to make sure I cover those expenses so that I can pass that barrier, pass that 90-day mark.
Correct.
And now you have the market research. Now you have your calculations. And the second your MC goes active, you go to work.
Right.
You start getting set up with brokers right away. One of the main companies that works with new MCs is TQL. TQL at times can take 2 days to review a new MC account before letting them take loads. You want that done right away. Right. You want to get on that. You want those brokers to be ready. Once they post, you or your dispatcher should just call and be like, put us on it. Because you know you're competing with people. Not only you're competing with other new MCs, you're also competing with people who have aged MCs, who have already worked with these brokers, and probably will be preferred providers for them.
This is a big question for a lot of carriers, and it's probably been said 1,000 times in the last 3 years since I've been running my trucks. Is the trucking industry dead? Is it dead? Like, really, seriously. I just had to ask that because it's like one of those questions, like, is it really dead, or are people really making money? Like, are people really making money in trucking, especially with box trucks? So I don't even talk about semis too much, but because my audience is predominantly box truck guys, some guys have semi stuff, but they keep saying it's no money. It's terrible out here. That's what I'm hearing. But
Vic,
What are you
I
guys
love
saying?
this industry. I love this industry, and it's true. It's tough now. It's tough now. It's toughest for new MCs. But even new MCs make money.
Right.
You got to be prepared. As long as you're willing to put in the miles, to put in the work, to not be too picky, trucking industry is going to provide.
For sure. For sure.
And that's what we've been seeing
Okay.
with new MCs. We deal with hundreds of new MCs, and yes, some of them do come out of the business, some of them don't make it,
Right.
but some of them make it really
Absolutely.
good. Some
Absolutely.
of these carriers, you just look at them and you're like, man, that's good. That's good, right?
For sure.
And it doesn't. The thing is, there isn't a big difference between those that come out of the business and those that stay in and just benefit from it a lot. It takes just a little extra push. Just a little extra is going to take you along the way. And the best thing about all of this is it gets easier as time passes.
Right.
Once
Absolutely.
you pass that first
Yes.
inspection,
Yes.
when a broker searches your MC and they see one truck, one driver, two trucks, two drivers, that gives you credibility. That 90 days, that one broker you have an amazing experience with, which you should maximize. Always ask them, hey, listen, if you have anything else, let me know. This is what my guys do every single time. It's that experience. You have anything else, I'm here. This is my area. This is my base. You take a good load, you tell the broker, if it's possible, let me know. You build those relationships. You go the extra mile. You never lose your cool. Never talk disrespectful to them. Provide your updates. And I know we spoke about this, and we spoke about research. We spoke about having your financials ready, knowing your market, but communication is key.
Right.
How your driver communicates with the broker. How often do you give updates?
Right.
How often do you tell them when the situation is gonna be unknown?
Right.
You're stuck in traffic. The broker asks you, what's the ETA? If you don't know the ETA, tell him,
Tell
I
them
don't
you
know
don't
the
know.
ETA.
Right. Be truthful.
Yeah.
Be truthful.
Don't ever lie about your
For sure.
location. Don't say I'm 100 miles away and then deliver a
Right.
load
That's
four
the worst
and a
thing
half
you can
hours
do.
later.
Yes. That's the worst
That's
thing you do. Just look forward to not working with that broker again if that happens. I promise you.
just remember, it takes them a button to
That's
block
it.
your number.
That's it.
And that's it. And
That's
and
it.
you can have the best justification as to why whatever happened, but you're no longer going to be able to call them. They'll block your email, they'll block your number.
For sure. Does Dispatch Experts for new authorities have a service available that you guys offer to where if I come into business and I'm new, I want to be confident that I can start running my business. If all my numbers match up, if everything checks out with my game plan, is there a service that you guys have that does that? That walks
Of course.
that kind of walks me through that first 90 days of me coming in this business and being able to start making some money. Like
Of course.
what does that picture look like if from Dispatch Experts?
We've been doing this for a while. We've been exclusively doing it for our clients because at times we found ourselves in a position where we told carriers that dispatching isn't something they should consider at the beginning. They should learn how to move themselves. We separated these services and didn't make it exclusive to Dispatch Experts clients.
Okay.
So right now we have a lot of new carriers coming into the industry that will come to us and take these services to have that realistic picture, to know where are they heading. And we inputted all of the research things that I said. These are all human hours, right? We have guys that sit there and actually do those searches, that actually go 3 times a day and search the board for capacity, for rates, note down the brokers, call and ask for rates. We do the calculations as well. And more importantly, we take care of those setups too.
Okay.
We have a list that we update every month, list of brokers that work with starting 1 day, starting 0 days, and then increasing from there, whether it is 90 days, 6 months, or a year.
I feel like that's a much needed service. Man, new authorities are having a tough time. Not saying that they're not booking freight, but they're having a tough time booking loads consistently, I should say, off the load board with the brand new authority. You can
Yeah,
book a load here and there, but it's more so about consistency. And
it is.
if you can map out the brokers that will give you work, because some brokers don't pop up in certain markets, right?
Nope.
Not every broker is going to be have loads moving. You're in Las Vegas, Nevada, or
Yeah.
West Coast somewhere. Every broker may not be functioning in those areas. So you want to have a nice handful of brokers that are spread out amongst these 50 or 48 states, right?
Yeah.
And if you can provide that, I think that's a much needed service for a new carrier.
We believe so. We believe so, and this is why we've been doing it again for our clients, for Dispatch Experts clients,
Okay.
and we've expanded it. And we realized that people just come in, and they might necessarily need dispatching services, but they want to see what the picture is.
Okay. I think we gave a wealth of information for new authorities, for a lot of new guys that are getting started out here. And you guys have an amazing service that you are providing the community out here, that do not want to dispatch for themselves, or need to get a full scope of what their picture looks like, because some people can't really figure out their cost per mile. They don't know what expenses that they really need to account for every month. And if you already have that stuff laid out for them, I think it just makes sense for them to, tap in with you guys and get their businesses up and running the right way. The right way. There's so many people just starting, but they're not starting the right way. You guys are definitely going to play a very vital role for a lot of new carriers that are getting started out here.
I hope so, Vic. I hope so. I hope the information we provided today, your viewers find useful. And again, if there's any questions, I'd love to answer. I try to talk to almost every client that comes to Dispatch Experts personally.
Okay.
And thank you so much for having me again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Links will be down below in the description box. If you want to reach out to Dispatch Experts, take a look at the link that's down below in the comment section, and I will make sure that I also pin the link. Always hustle, never stop growing. To the next video. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's eat.